off. The Indiana Fever go into New York and walk out of New York with a W in hand. Things that I like.
Caitlin Clark stepped into a roaring storm at the Barclays Center yesterday afternoon, returning to that stage for the first time in 9 exhausting months, and the arena didn't just react, it trembled. The second her name blasted through the speakers, the New York crowd exploded with raw energy. Anticipation had been building all day, and when the starting lineups finally hit the floor, you could feel the tension crack in the air. Then came the opening tip. On the very first possession of the 2026 preseason, Clark touched the ball, squared up against tight elite defense, and attacked without hesitation, driving hard to the rim and finishing with a smooth, confident layup. Moments later, she came back down the court, read the defense like a veteran chess player, stepped back from well beyond the arc 30 feet out and buried a cold-blooded logo three. 2 possessions, 2 buckets, 5 instant points. And just like that, the defending Eastern Conference champion Liberty looked shaken. The building was electric, buzzing with disbelief and excitement. For a brief, powerful moment, every Indiana Fever fan watching felt that surge of belief that their superstar had fully returned, ready to reclaim her throne. But momentum can shift fast. After that explosive start, Clark missed her next 8 shots in a row. What began as a highlight reel opening quickly turned into a frustrating stretch, and by the end, her shooting numbers painted a far less efficient picture. As the Fever offense slowed and rhythm became harder to find, something even more concerning caught attention. On the sideline, Clark was spotted wearing what looked like a large, restrictive medical back brace. Suddenly, the energy surrounding the game flipped. The celebration turned into concern in a matter of minutes. What had felt like a triumphant comeback now carried an uneasy question mark. Welcome back to WNBA Spark, the place where the conversation goes deeper, sharper, and far beyond surface-level takes. This isn't about box scores or recycled media narratives. This is about breaking down what actually happened on that court in Brooklyn. Because reality is far more complex than a stat sheet, and the future of this team may hinge on understanding it correctly. Let's start with the undeniable facts. The Indiana Fever didn't just win, they dominated. A 109-91 blowout against a stacked Liberty roster featuring some of the league's biggest stars. And they did it while missing key players, no Aaliyah Boston anchoring the middle, no Lexi Hull spacing the floor, no Tiasha Harris running the second unit, and no Demira Stantis in the rotation. Despite all of that, they dropped 109 points on the road. That's not just a win, that's a statement. Kelsey Mitchell led the charge with 18 points on efficient shooting, controlling the pace and delivering when it mattered. Shadorie Walker-Kimbrough matched that production off the bench, bringing intensity and scoring punch. Sophie Cunningham stepped into a starting role and delivered with confidence, knocking down big shots from deep. Michaela Timpson was flawless, finishing every opportunity and making a strong impact. The depth that critics questioned showed up in a big way. The fast-paced transition system worked exactly as designed. For stretches, this team looked like a legitimate powerhouse. But all eyes remained on one number, the stat line that divided fans and confused the broader conversation. Caitlin Clark, 2 for 10 shooting, just 7 points, 4 assists, 0 turnovers in just over 16 minutes of action. Not the explosive performance many expected after that opening sequence.
Taking it right to the post, boom, get off me, right over your head. That's how we started off the game, folks. That's how we started off the game. Love to see that. Then we follow up 5-0, I believe, after a Sophie Cunningham 3.
But there's a much deeper, far more critical layer behind this shooting performance that cannot be ignored. Caitlin Clark just endured 9 long, physically demanding months without stepping into true, high-level WNBA competition. 9 full months away from this exact intensity. The last time she suited up for the Indiana Fever in a real WNBA game setting was July 15th of last year. And yes, while she delivered a dominant MVP-level showing at the FIBA tournament back in March, that level of play simply does not replicate what the WNBA brings every single night. The defenses are on an entirely different level. The physicality hits harder. The size, strength, and speed of elite defenders closing in on her are completely different. The defensive schemes, especially the aggressive trapping, are far more complex and suffocating. Now add another layer to that reality. She stepped into that hostile, high-pressure environment without 2 of her most trusted and essential teammates beside her. Aaliyah Boston was held out purely as a precaution. Lexi Hull was sidelined with a hamstring issue. That meant Clark had to instantly adjust, reading and running an altered offensive system without her primary screener and without her most reliable floor spacer. And she had to do all of that against one of the top defensive units in the Eastern Conference. So, yes, of course, she missed shots. Of course, there were moments where she looked just a step off. That wasn't failure, that was expected. This was preseason basketball. This was controlled intensity. This was, in reality, high level rehab in a live game setting. Clark wasn't just playing, she was actively testing everything: her body, her rhythm, her timing, and even subtle adjustments in her mechanics. This was her first real exposure to game speed and physical contact since the injury. Expecting her to walk in and casually drop 30 points on perfect efficiency against a defense built to trap and disrupt her was never realistic. That expectation wasn't just high, it was disconnected from reality. Now stay locked in, because this is where things take a more concerning turn, the most unsettling moment of the entire game. After Clark checked out, cameras caught her sitting on the bench, and what stood out immediately was what she was wearing: a clearly visible, tightly wrapped, restrictive medical brace secured firmly around her lower back. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't hidden. It was right there in plain sight, completely wrapped around her lower back. 2. In case you didn't catch it.
2. In case you guys didn't see it, Caitlin Clark walking around with a back brace. Now, I know some people are saying, people in my chat were saying, shout out to everybody in the venue, salute to y'all. People are saying this is a biometric device. Looks like a back brace to me.
The moment those images surfaced online, social media didn't just react, it erupted with intense, justified panic. Questions immediately took over every comment section. Was she injured again? Did she suffer a new structural setback? Were those brutal 8 months of rehab not enough after all? Is the Indiana fever season already at serious risk before it even begins? The fear spread instantly, faster than anyone could process. Here's the exact reality, delivered with complete and unapologetic objectivity. At this moment, there is no clear, official medical update from the Indiana Fever organization. The front office has not released any detailed statement regarding a lower back issue. Caitlin Clark herself did not directly address the visible brace during her post-game remarks. So instead of jumping to conclusions, we follow what responsible, high-level basketball analysis demands. We wait for confirmed medical information before declaring anything drastic. The truth is far less dramatic than the internet wants it to be. WNBA players regularly use compression wraps, heating pads, and structural support while sitting on the bench. Sometimes it's for real injuries, but other times it's simply for tightness, soreness, or stiffness after extended time off the floor. It does not automatically, definitively mean something is seriously wrong. That said, any sign of physical concern involving Caitlin Clark will understandably send this fan base into panic mode. Last season left scars. The injuries that forced her to miss 31 games were not just setbacks, they were devastating. Fans have been conditioned to expect the worst at even the smallest sign of trouble, and their reaction is completely valid. But that is also exactly why patience matters right now. Waiting for facts is critical. Head coach Stephanie White made it very clear before the game protecting Clark's body is the top priority above everything else. It is entirely possible that the visible back support was simply part of a cautious, preventative strategy rather than a response to a new injury. The real answer will likely surface within the next 48 hours. What we do know, without question, is this: when Clark was on the court, she looked fluid, confident, and fully capable. She moved freely, got to her spots with ease, and created clean looks against elite defenders. There was no limp, no hesitation, no visible discomfort. She didn't favor one side of her body at any point. The only thing missing was consistent shooting after those first 2 explosive possessions. That's not an injury, that's rust. And rust can be fixed with repetition and rhythm. Injuries, on the other hand, are a completely different, far more serious conversation. And here's the key takeaway that should give Indiana Fever fans real confidence moving forward.
Lull in the offense. I believe sometime in the second quarter, we had like a very lull in our offense where the New York Liberty is kind of putting it on us, and we're sitting around asking ourselves, what's going on? Raven Johnson stepped up in that moment and said, damn, I guess I got to try to be as aggressive as I can. I guess I got to make things happen. She takes it coast to coast. She hits she hits Kelsey Mitchell, I believe, in the corner for 3.
Raven Johnson stepped into her long-awaited professional debut under intense scrutiny, and she delivered a performance that was nothing short of exceptional. She shot a flawless 3 for 3 from the field, displaying confidence and control in every possession she touched. By the final buzzer, she had compiled 6 points, 3 rebounds, a game-high 8 assists, 2 emphatic blocks, and 1 steal, all within just 17 highly productive minutes on the floor. Even more impressive, she finished with a remarkable plus 14 rating, an extraordinary mark for a rookie making her very first appearance. A plus 14 impact against a championship-level defense speaks volumes. Take a second and truly absorb those numbers. 8 assists, 0 turnovers. From a rookie point guard stepping into one of the most competitive environments possible. The heated, often toxic debate surrounding the point guard situation that dominated online discussions for weeks was instantly flipped on its head by Johnson's performance. She didn't just participate, she proved without question that she belongs at this level. Her ability to control tempo, read defenses, and execute within a high-speed offensive system was on full display. She showed through pure production and efficiency that she can seamlessly operate this fast-paced scheme. Every loud criticism that once surrounded her selection was effectively silenced in a single game. Johnson answered everything with her play, and she did it in convincing fashion. And beyond that, we also have to acknowledge the continued and undeniable statistical validation of Justine Pensot.
At one point during the game, that's Justine Pensot
points on the
hitting threes. At one point in the game, we have Sophie Cunningham and Raven Johnson going give and go action. Sophie Cunningham gets a steal. Boom, steal to Raven. Raven back to Sophie. Looked good to me. And then Sophie Cunningham in the second quarter hitting her third.
The 6'4" elite sharpshooter, currently battling for her professional future just to lock in a roster spot, saw only 10 minutes and 24 seconds of action but made every second count. She went 2 for 4 from the field, including a clutch 1 of 3 from beyond the arc. She calmly knocked down her free throws and closed the night with 6 points and a strong +6 rating. That is not the profile of a player who deserves to be cut. That is the performance of someone who just handed the front office every possible statistical reason to rethink roster decisions and even adjust the salary structure to keep her. The young talent stepped up in a major way, and the bench unit as a whole completely outplayed the New York Liberty. Shatori Walker-Kimbrough emerged as the biggest spark off the bench, pouring in 18 points with impressive efficiency. Michaela Timpson dominated inside with physical presence and energy. Sophie Cunningham looked fully recovered and dangerous again after returning from her torn MCL. The Indiana Fever had 8 different players score at least 6 points against a top-tier defensive team. 8 contributors. That is the blueprint of a balanced, unpredictable offense, the exact type that wins championships, not just preseason matchups. Before the game, Stephanie White made it clear that building chemistry would take time, emphasizing that just 5 chaotic days of practice wouldn't be enough. Yet on the sideline, she watched her team execute a fast-paced, cohesive system that perfectly reflected her long-term vision. And they did it without their 2 best front-court players, without a key veteran point guard, on the road, against a championship-level roster, in a hostile environment, and still won by 8 team-dominant points. Here's the undeniable conclusion. Caitlin Clark had a slightly off-shooting night, but her presence and gravity still disrupted the defense at an elite level. The back brace is something to monitor closely, but not a reason for immediate panic until confirmed medical details emerge. The supporting cast delivered at a high level. The young players proved they belong. And the Indiana Fever opened their preseason with a commanding 18-point victory despite missing major pieces from their core lineup.
First quarter scored 32 points. Second quarter we dropped down to 21. Very interesting what was going on over there. All in all, can't take too much away from this game other than, personally, Raven and Justine Pensot looking like they're rotation players in this league. I'm glad with what I saw from those two. Let me know your
WNBA Sparkay will continue delivering the raw, unfiltered truth as new information comes in. And at this moment, the reality that should worry the rest of the league is simple this: Indiana Fever squad looks like a complete unstoppable force when fully healthy and in rhythm. The next major preseason matchup is set for April 30th on their home floor against the Dallas Wings. Paige Bueckers and Adi Fudd will be stepping into Indianapolis, creating what could be the ultimate test for this backcourt rotation and depth. That game is also where we are likely to finally get real clarity on Caitlin Clark's back situation. This is WNBA Pro. If you want deep, no-nonsense analysis that goes far beyond the surface-level takes of mainstream coverage, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Drop your honest, unfiltered opinion in the comments. Are you genuinely concerned about the back brace? Or do you fully trust Clark's recovery process? And did Raven Johnson just earn herself a serious role in the rotation moving forward? I want to see every informed perspective down there. Turn on the notification bell immediately because the next big preseason showdown is just 5 days away. The intensity is building fast and the regular season is closing in quickly.